on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's O'Connor and Company on the 8 o'clock mark, 8:06 technically. 1 hour from now, it's the Chris Plant Show. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll check in with Bret, Baier for Fox News Channel. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Patrice.
Happy Friday, Larry.
Same to you, as this is not just any Friday, it's the Friday before Election Yay.
That's right.
And, of course, early voting's been going on in Virginia last 43 days, I think. Tomorrow's the last day for early voting, and then it's Election Day, and we're trying to give you a good rundown of all the candidates, or a good chunk of the candidates. We've certainly been doing that for the last couple of months. We want you to be informed, educated, motivated, and know who you're voting for. So let's get into it. This next candidate is a man of international intrigue, actually.
Ooh.
You read his bio, and it does sound like a James Bond-type character. He's Sabio, Tony Sabio. It is running for school board in the Province District of Fairfax County against a gentleman who I believe is actually quite close to being the Bond villain of the school board, Carl Frisch. Tony, thanks for joining us, sir.
Hey, Larry. Hey, Patrice. Thank you so much for having me. That is probably the coolest intro I've ever heard. And I think my campaign is going to use that, if you don't mind.
Well, listen,
Absolutely.
you're a Navy veteran. You were in the Secret Service. You were in the CIA. I mean, who knows what you've been into. But now your career and lifetime of service brings you to our children. And clearly, as a man who's good at analyzing what's going on out there and what needs to be done, you've seen a real problem in our Fairfax schools. And it appears, since you're running for school board, you think that it starts on that body. What's going to happen?
I tell you, when I started looking into the schools and what's happening around our country, and yes, I served internationally, I've seen different things, but started seeing what's happening in our country really was affecting me. But then when I started digging into actually Fairfax County's public schools and peeling the onion away, it just gets dirtier and dirtier. And you're seeing layers upon layers of things that would be appalling if a lot of people are actually paying attention. And what my opponent does is very good with his tactic, and very good with his supporters are doing the same thing. They like to stifle my words. They like to hold back actually what I'm saying. It's completely facts, and my team is fantastic with putting it all together, all these facts together, trying to push it out. And when people, normal people, we're talking modern Democrats, independents, Republicans, when they hear all these things are happening, they're appalled. They just look at it as this can't really be happening. And my mission is to get the word out as much as possible. And it's actually resonating with a lot of Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
Well, Tony, I'm on your website. I think it's Sabio, 4, Fairfax.com. What stuck out to me is you want to focus on mental health and the impact mental health is having on young people. You talk about being a foster parent of an at-risk teen. Why is this mental health so important for Fairfax students, and what can you bring to the table that would help to alleviate some of these problems?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm a security person. In my business right now, I take care of security advising, consulting, and a lot of private companies and private schools come to me to solve a lot of their issues. Mental health is the baseline, what we're seeing for a lot of these things that I have to deal with in the security realm. It's something nothing's being looked at. Everyone's turning the other way to this. They look at the weapons, they look at various other things, but they're not looking at the mental health. And so when we started looking at the mental health aspect and what we could do, one, as a foster parent, like you mentioned, I went through Fairfax County foster care program, and I had to get certified. And during that program, I actually learned a lot. And I told them, I wish I had this type of training when I had my kids. Because parents are just trying every single day. I mean, we don't get a manual when our kids are born. And so we're trying every single day. And so what I want to do is really concentrate on the root cause that gets kids, gets adults, gets everyone to the point where they have to take drugs, where we have a fentanyl overdose situation right now. And it's killing our kids more than anything else out there, where kids are going into gangs because they have that separation from the family. Or they're killing kids. Kids are dying by tens of thousands over in Chicago, but nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
Suicide rates are up. I think right now female suicide rates up by 12% because of all the stress. And if we could get to the mental health aspect in early stages, we could save some lives, and not just lives for say if there's somebody does the worst of worst and does a mass shooting, but what about the person that actually commits suicide and they're taking their own life away? And so that's what I want to concentrate on.
Tony Sabio is running for the Province District of Fairfax County School Board, and we talked about your background, your life of service, either to the military or to the Central Intelligence Agency or to the Secret Service. I want to talk about your opponent for a moment. Carl Frisch, he has no children in the school system. His background is working as an anti-free speech, pro-cancel culture activist for Media Matters for America. And if you look at his record since he's been on the school board, the thing that seems to motivate him as an activist is anything related to LGBTQIA plus activism and agendas. If you look at his record and what he gets most outspoken about, you would think that the only issue facing children in Fairfax County schools is gay gender issues and sexual issues. And he's on the wrong side of all of those things, and he wants parents to be not included in any of these conversations. He has a fundamental mistrust of parents with regard to their own children on these issues. Tony, I consider this man to be dangerous, and I think he single-handedly has steered the direction of the school board to adopt some of the most radical policies. Can you beat him in this election, and are you leading with that issue?
I will tell you this. I agree. His single focus is one segment of the community. It's a small minority segment of the community. But he's focused everything on that and changed policy towards that to solve those issues. Nothing's happening for the minority community. We have a 21% dropout rate for Hispanic kids. That's appalling. They just put resources out in Tyson's Corner to support our Hispanic community. I live next to Tyson's. The Hispanic community is more towards Annandale and Springfield. Why not putting resources over there? They do a lot of smoke and mirrors. But let me talk a little bit about Carl. And as a person, I have nothing against him. His policies show exactly where he stands with a lot of things. He came from Media Matters. In Media Matters, there was actually a memo leaked saying that they need to target Fox News correspondents with lawyers to just dig up some dirt on them. Yep. That's the type of tactics, the underhand tactics that this school board, led by him, because he is the vice chair, led by him, is doing. We spent more money on lawyers than anywhere else. We have actually 7 lawyers that did the numbers, 7 lawyers on staff. I don't understand why we have 7 lawyers on staff. But let me continue on with this. We have a couple of cases happening right now, and my campaign is really highlighting it. They tried to push what the courts called a one-free rape rule, meaning the schools have the option to not investigate an allegation of sexual misconduct, violence or rape.
Wow.
If it's only the first time around.
Yeah.
If it's the second time, okay, then we'll go ahead and do an investigation on this. This goes against everything that's decent in our society. Yeah. The schools should not have a place to decide whether they're going to go ahead and make an investigation or not. That goes to law enforcement. They need to inform law enforcement. Yeah. But let me go a little bit further than that. Right now, we have a case going on. We have a couple cases. And as you start digging in, like I said, as that onion starts peeling back, it just gets worse and worse. We have a current case going on where this person came out in 2011. Now, granted, it was before this current school board, but the case is still going on. So what's happening now is because of the current school board led by Carl Frisch, and what he's trying to do to stifle it. So this female came out in 2011 and complained and said about sexual assault. She went on to about another 6 months dealing with all this, reaching out to teachers, administrators, and pretty much being told, you're complicit in it. It really didn't happen. Put your big girl pants on.
That's right.
And so Go ahead. I'm sorry, Larry.
Well, I was going to say, it's just another example of these school board officials getting in the way, covering these things up, excusing horrible behavior, because they've taken sides in these culture wars. They've taken, specifically with regards to the sexuality of our children. It's outrageous. We got to end it here, sadly. Good luck with the final days of the election. No, that's okay. It's Tony Sabio, Sabio4Fairfax.com, the number 4. Elect Tony Sabio, and even, frankly, as important, defeat Carl Frisch and change the direction once and for all for Fairfax County Schools. It's 8:16. We got to get straight to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL. Making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Well, Kathy Tran's main claim to fame is that she introduced a bill in Virginia that would allow for the murder of a baby during the course of childbirth, actually. And when asked about the details of her bill, that she, of course, wrote off to, women's health, she had to concede, yes, my bill would allow that. My bill would allow giving a legal abortion even as a woman is entering the process of giving birth. For that, and for that alone, Kathy Tran should be fired from her job as a member of the House of Delegates. Ed McGovern's the guy to do it. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, I focused on the most infamous part of your opponent's record. Why don't you flesh it out a little bit more? Who is Kathy Tran, and why do you want to defeat her?
Okay, I've met Kathy Tran, and to meet her is to want to run against her. She's somebody who talks. She's somebody who talks about Trumpism. She can't explain what that is, but she's running Tranism, and I can say what that is. She represents big money, special interests. She's pulled in a ton of money from out of state. She rolled over another candidate. The first time she ran in a primary, had $300,000 for this part-time legislative job, and then she's got $300,000 every time she runs. This is what she's about. When you watch that video of her explaining the bill, you can see a lobbyist within touching distance of her. And from another angle, I'm not sure if she presented it a second time, there's a second lobbyist right there. And none of them can explain anything about the bill. We had a forum. She had a lobbyist walking with her to the forum, the one that she came to in person. This is Kathy Tran. It's about big money. She represents, several special interests. She does not represent my street or anything about this community. This is what she's about. I'm running. I have a couple things. I'll circle back because you have to talk about abortion with Kathy Tran. What also she's involved in, we have what we get on the tax dollar from Richmond's going down for the last 10 years. It used to be over 30 cents on the dollar. Now it's 21.5. This resonates with a lot of people because the Democrat solution, we did take a hit. Receiving taxes off commercial buildings. There's no question. I'm not hunting for taxes, but we have to pay taxes. But we have skyrocketing property taxes here in Fairfax County. They've shot up. And we're also getting killed on the car tax. And Kathy Tran is a big proponent of, let's crank this up. Not a problem. What we need is balance. When we have Republican and Democratic delegates, especially on the House side, from Fairfax County, we get more back in the tax dollar. And that's the answer. And she doesn't like that.
So, Ed, we're speaking with Ed McGovern. You're running for the House of Delegates. I'm looking at some of the issues that you're talking about. Now, you are a retired civil servant, so you understand the role of government and it needing to be smaller. I want to pick up on what you were just talking about, though, when you talk about business and talking about saving families money, especially on taxes, property taxes. Talk more about what you would like to do and what you would like to see done for the constituents of Virginia.
Okay, more back from Richmond. Fairfax County's been carrying Virginia. I'll say that. We've been carrying Virginia for years. The answer is get back more in the dollar. we send the money down there. We're not getting it back. We've never done great, but if we could, I don't know how long it's going to take, but we need to get more back. That way, we don't have to have we can do something about the property assessments. Now, Pat Harity needs a company on the board of supervisors. There's no question, and there'll be a lot more pressure there if we got more back from Richmond to say, hey, you don't need to have these property assessments cranked up. You don't need to crank up the car tax. And floating around is a meals tax, which we have defeated twice in a referendum in Fairfax County. So the key is get our hard-earned dollars back from Richmond.
Ed McGovern, we'll leave it there. It's edmcgovernva.org, edmcgovernva.org, running against Kathy Tran, 18th District, which is Fairfax County. Thanks, Ed.
18th District, Eastern Fairfax County, runs from like the old Lorton Prison Complex up through Springfield to 495.
Yep, the belly of the beast in Fairfax County. Thanks, Ed.
Okay. And I've gotten help from Cumulus. Thanks a lot.
823.
Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to set it up perfectly for Chris Plant, as we do every day. Patrice Onwuka, he's the luckiest man in talk radio. He's got the greatest lead-in anyone's ever had. Well, at least since we lost Rush. I'm Larry O'Connor. We're with Patrice Onwuka, and we've got our pal Bret Baier from Fox News Channel. Good morning, Bret.
Morning.
So yesterday, Mike Johnson had his first real test there, and he wrangled the Republican caucus. Well, I guess his first real test was getting the gavel. Okay, second real test. Wrangled the caucus, passed a standalone funding bill for Israel defense, and the Biden White House has vowed to veto it. So what do you think the next step is here? Do you think that the Senate will run interference for Joe Biden and never take it up? Because it is worth a vote, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is tough for Democrats. An aid package that 12 Democrats voted for in the House that, yes, does do pay-fors by taking from IRS funding, which is not a popular thought in the big picture in voter land. And I think that there is this emergency feel that you want to get aid to Israel. I think politically, Johnson walked the line pretty well. A hat tip to his right side. He got Democrats to sign on, and now the ball is in the Senate Democrats and the White House court, and we'll see. If the president does veto it, that does send a message, and I think that it risks Israeli aid.
Yeah.
Right now, Johnson wants to tie Ukrainian aid to border security, which could be another possible stroke of good fortune for him.
Right, and let's be clear: if the Democrats in the Senate refuse to take it up, or the president gets it and vetoes it, he's sending the message that it's more important to have Ukraine funded or the IRS funded or all the other things that have been wrapped up into that package. And there is a bit of not just political acumen here at play, but also common sense. Let's have everything voted on up or down standalone so that voters know exactly where their representatives stand on specific issues instead of these giant conglomerate bills.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that Johnson actually talked about when he took over the gavel. He said that that's what he wanted to do. These massive, comprehensive bills that you shove, Christmas trees in there and ornaments, with all kinds of different things in there, have not been working well. And the Republican caucus said we have to change that.
So, Bret, the other big news, obviously, is the Israeli conflict here. I guess Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is meeting with Israeli officials today to kind of talk about, I don't know if it's to smooth over things, to bring some of the international pressure for Israel to maybe slow down or do a pause. Do you think the White House is under a lot of pressure and thereby putting the rest of the administration under pressure for a pause, which, to me sounds like a ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire? But is that what we're seeing here, U.S. caving to some international pressure?
Well, it's definitely changed in the way they talk about it, and it's evolved in the moral clarity of standing with Israel and standing with them as they go after these, in their words, monsters who did this. I think that ceasefires are a two-way street. There is no ceasefire on the Hamas side. You have the Hamas officials saying that they're going to continue to try to erase Israel. It's in their charter. It's what they're talking about publicly. And yet, there are all these calls for a ceasefire on the one side. I don't think there are a lot of countries that were telling the U.S. To pause in the effort to find al-Qaeda terrorists and kill the people behind 9/11.
Yeah, well said, Bret. And I got to ask, we've been commenting on it all week. Are you sensing that potentially there is a shift among voters right now based on what they're perceiving? There was always some things that we could agree on, and even though you could argue that Republicans may have been a little more hawkish with regard to our allegiance with Israel, or at least our support of Israel, Democrats, for the most part, would often agree with that support. But there's a very real, legitimate, loud voice within the current makeup of the Democratic Party that is incredibly suspicious, if not outright hostile, to the state of Israel.
Yeah, and it's got a voice in a number of lawmakers, Rashida Tlaib and others, who are very vocal. And I do think that there is a split. I mean, if you look at these college campuses, this is not happening in a vacuum. And, the Israelis and U.S. government knew that once this operation started in full, there were going to be a lot of pictures of civilian deaths, because that's how Hamas operates. They use them as human shields. And despite the best efforts of Israel to get people out of that northern region, and to protect civilians, it's going to be ugly. And I think the uglier it is, the more you're going to see this pushback.
There's some major things going on in national news, Bret, so we had to focus. I wish we could wax poetic on George Washington and his time building this republic, but we'll have to save that for next time. But in the meantime, everyone should buy this book. It's a great holiday present, too, To Rescue the Constitution, George Washington and the Fragile American Experiment, by our own Bret Baier. Thanks, Bret. Great talking with you.
All right, have a good weekend.
Well, Patrice Onwuka, it's time for Critter News, and boy, it would really be rude for us to introduce another candidate with the Critter News theme, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we've had some good intro music, but not this one.
We have interviewed a dozen people running for elections.
It was a marathon.
Just today, we stand behind no one in this region for our coverage of local issues. We absolutely, it's our pride and joy. And so we are grateful to all of the candidates, and certainly grateful to our tireless executive producer, Heather Hunter, for putting all of the pieces in place and our rundown today. So all of you should consider yourself very well-informed voters as we head toward Election Day Tuesday, and now we'll just cross our fingers and hope that everything pays off. Now, Critter News. It could very well be the most disturbing headline I've ever seen. Giant parachuting spiders may be coming to a neighborhood near you.
Are they carrying a Palestinian flag?
Well, it does sort of evokes a terrorist attack, doesn't it? The Joro spider. These are arachnids, according to the New York Post, known for vibrant yellow and black patterns and the ability to weave parachutes. Now, they're currently thriving in the Carolinas, but they're spreading across the East Coast and heading right up here to the Mid-Atlantic. Clemson University's researchers found the Joros, who made their way to the U.S. aboard shipping containers from Asia. Thanks, Obama. Nearly a decade ago, have expanded, and they reside within a 75,000-mile ecosystem across the North and South Carolina and Georgia. These guys can grow as big as the palm of your hand.
Oh, that's scary. Halloween is over, but that's scary.
And they spin little parachutes.
This is scarier, though, Larry. Unlike their native Asian cousins, these Joros have little to get in their way. They have their natural predators here, and they have no other natural predators, to eat them. Yeah. So they can eat everything, and nothing's going to eat them.
Listen, I know that a lot of people are They love going out to the range and do skeet shooting and things like that.
Oh.
I think we need to enlist some. Well, I mean, you don't want to just be randomly
shooting
spiders, parachuting spiders, but they have been spotted in Maryland.
Yikes!
So, and Virginia's got them because the only way they get here, where you think they went airborne and airdropped over Virginia? No, they are here now. They're large. They're venomous. Mm-hmm. Scientists claim, though, they don't actually pose a threat.
Well, apparently their fangs are too small to penetrate people's skin. Well, what about a baby's skin, though? I mean,
either way,
baby is much more tender.
I don't want to test this hypothesis out, right? I don't need a spider the size of my palm.
Yeah, that's pretty
knitting
big.
itself a parachute to swoop in on the top of my head and test out its mandibles on my scalp.
That is, unless you become a Asian version of Spider-Man. What if you can become Spider-Man and get Spidey powers?
Well, what's the Asian version of Spider-Man?
Well, aren't these from? These are arachnids are not from.
Yeah, I know, but there's got to be another punchline there that could land me in trouble.
I think I've already gotten in trouble.
All right,
at the start of this,
I'll leave it. All right. Well, I guess the best we actually have somebody talking about these. All right, cut 4.
Okay.
This is scientist Andy Davis.
While they've been primarily sighted in the South, Davis says it's a matter of time before Juros make their way north.
Physiologically, these Juros are much more suited to a colder environment, which means that they're probably going to spread throughout most of the eastern seaboard.
Oh, terrific. Well, there you go. We just have to accept it, honestly. A giant palm-sized, multicolored red and yellow spider who can weave its own parachute, drop from a tall tree, and float wherever it wants, including into your food while you're trying to eat.
If there's a silver lining here, Larry, here's a silver lining. It's now cold, so people are not outdoors again. Other than maybe your bonfires, and then you just throw them in there. Just have them parachute into the bonfire. But at least they won't invade our pool parties, our barbecues. You know what I mean? That's a silver lining.
I thought you were going to give me. There is an actual silver lining, and that is that these likely don't go inside homes. They tend to like the outdoors.
Okay.
So you won't find them in your house.
Just in your car.
They craft these very elaborate webs outdoors along the side of homes and along the side of buildings, and then if they need to move from one place to the other, they go airborne. They're the screaming eagles. They like to float in, and everything's going to be fine. All right, Patrice Onwuka, you have a great weekend.
You too, Larry. Watch out for spiders.
Yes, parachuting spiders. Here comes Chris Plant. Hello, Christopher.
Here comes Chris Plant. Hello, kids. Another wonderful show by you today. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
Did you see the anti-Semite mob at Harvard? Chasing down and threatening the Jewish kid. They got the Jewish kid.
Blocking his path, shoving him out of the way. Yeah.
It's the head of the Harvard Law Review that's leading the anti-Semite, and he's got bleach blonde hair. He's unconcerned with conventional notions of masculinity.
Wasn't Barack Obama the head of the Harvard Law Review at one
Well,
point?
that's funny. We talked about that because you remember he was not the editor, but they made up a title for him, and they